ID. Call from with ID.
It's 1:30 and we are going to call this meeting to order. We have action item file AM 0007-24 Bonner County Comprehensive Plan Component Update Land Use. Then file AM 0004-25 Bonner County Comprehensive Plan Component Update Implementation. And so if you did not get to see yesterday's workshop, one of the things the planning department did do is after all of our updates, they posted kind of our draft of what we have updated online so that everybody can take an opportunity to review kind of the suggestions, noting that the board needs to address the desire that we have a glossary of terms that gives some definitions in the back of that. If you didn't get a chance to look at it, you can see it on their site. From a perspective of the board, one of the things, Commissioner Korn, that the two of us discussed was we don't want to give short notice for people to see what we did change, that not actually whether or not we want to make a decision today or to delay a decision by a period of time to allow the community to see from top to bottom what changes we did make thus far. But also recognizing that everybody here wants to give a comment. So not getting rid of comment, but not making a decision on it because we just made the final review yesterday, which wanting to make sure you get an opportunity to look at it. So what are your thoughts on it? Do we want to go delay a decision until another week at least?
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Commissioner Donkey?
I agree, or are we out of order with the agenda?
I'm asking trying to do a process of how we're going to do the meeting itself. So if we're going to do the meeting and we're thinking we're going to make decisions, then we can go one by one. But if we're not going to do that, then we can address how we're going to address the meeting as a whole.
So then from that perspective, I agree that giving community time to review the current draft, perhaps over the next week approximately, before making a decision, so we can hear if there's any additional comment on that proposed draft would be valuable. And as talking low, so I can't hear. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to project more. Yeah, this doesn't
There's no
amplify,
projection, so if you can't hear back there, come up to the front here, because there's no projection on the microphones, unfortunately.
I'll try to speak louder as well. So, but I'm speaking to the board, so that's part of the issue. So, and then when it comes to the land use component, per our prior workshop that we were discussing that, it's still my position and opinion that we have a significant amount of work as a board to go through the detail of what's being proposed on the map, as well as spending some time digging into the language of the land use designations to make sure that we think all that alignment works. I know I've expressed I still have some questions and concerns about the mixed use designation and whether we should continue to use that, redefine that, replace that with a couple of other designations. So I think it behooves us to spend more time on that and some additional workshops and then walk through the map together, one area of the county at a time, and confirm that we agree with what's being proposed in the map right now, or if we should make changes to it. What I would like to do personally is actually make proposed changes to the current map that's being proposed by the Planning Commission and show them to the board side by side to say, here's what the Planning Commission has proposed on the map and here's what I'm proposing we do in that area on the map, if I have any suggested differences, so that the whole board can see and understand the two different perspectives and see how that leads to a decision. And that's going to take some time and a couple of workshops to be able to walk through as a board. And I think that's our due diligence to do that, to spend that time on it. And I'm willing to dedicate time between workshops to prepare suggestions and ideas for the rest of the board to consider, if you guys are willing to do that. So I would propose that we continue the comprehensive plan land use component to allow enough time, as far as the hearing goes, to make a final decision, to hold at least 2 board workshops to walk through those details together and decide if we have a level of comfort and confidence before determining whether to adopt as proposed or as amended the current land use component and associated map. So that's going to be my suggestion to think about when it comes to our actions today. I'm personally not prepared to be comfortable to say that I'm ready to adopt what's been proposed as is.
Okay.
All right, so in terms of file AM007-24, what we'll do is we'll turn it over to planning to see if they have any introduction that they want to do. Then we'll call for a motion from the board. After we have a motion, then we will go to public comment on each item. All right? Director Gabel, anything on the first item on the agenda?
So I did prepare a staff report for this. It was very similar to the previous staff report. I just wanted to go over some dates as far as keeping people aware of what's been going on with this file. So it's AM 724, and this is the land use component. So this is the update to the land use map, as well as the component and the language around the descriptions of the land use designations. So there was the Planning Commission held a number of workshops, as well as other public meetings regarding this component. They held a hearing back in, I believe it was April 22nd, if I recall. Since then, the board has met with the Planning Commission on April 24th, May 5th, and July 31st, all to conduct workshops and discuss this component update. They had a hearing, or the board had a hearing on May 28th. It was continued to a date and time certain. We didn't continue that hearing that date, so we advertised a new hearing date being today. And so if the board would like additional workshops on this to discuss this item, I would just state, if you want to continue this to a date and time certain, great, we can do that. Or if you want to leave it open-ended so that when you complete your drafts, then we publish for a hearing and let people know we're ready with your draft to the hearing. So given just what we've done with the other component we're going to talk about today and the number of changes, I would recommend that we don't continue to a date and time certain. You just continue it. We set up what our schedule is, or what the board schedule is for your review, how you want to interact with the public and when you want their comment on it. And then from there, we'll publish a notice of public hearing like we did for this one. So if you want me to go through the whole staff report and represent what I did back in, I think it was May, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, those are the major changes since May.
I agree with the planning director's recommendation that we continue the hearing, but not to a date and time certain, since we don't know how many workshops it'll take to go through the data together. So I think it would be best to just start scheduling workshops. And then as we go through those workshops, we can determine at what point we're coming to a conclusion on our thought process so that we can schedule the public hearing to actually make a final decision.
I agree with not doing a date certain just because we don't know a date. I don't know a date certain that we could select. So if the board is comfortable, and I personally don't think we need to go through the whole presentation that we did before.
Okay.
I think that the county has done a good job of making sure that it's available to the public to see, and we already held a hearing with that particular presentation. So with that, is the board prepared to enter a motion regarding AM 0007-24?
Yes. I move that we continue file AM 0007-24, the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan Component Update Land Use, to allow time for the board to schedule multiple public workshops in order to review, consider, and make proposed changes to this component of the comprehensive plan prior to holding a public hearing.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Public comment on the land use component. Motion that was just put on the board. We'll go to Mr. Martin online. Please be, and so everybody be mindful of the time that you're using. There's not a shot clock running right now.
Wayne Martin, Bonner County resident. I do wish to agree with Commissioner Domke about the mixed use, a better redefinition of that, in my opinion. Under the land use, page number 19, and I believe it's also 20 on rural, item number 4, it's a very loose, open definition of what wildlife habitat is. 5, don't believe that it should be in the rural as it is written. Number 6, limiting the extension of urban government to areas of city impact. I don't quite understand that the way that it's written, because to me that means that you're not giving any urban government to the city areas. I would like also to question why Selly, Samuels, Sagal, and Southwest are listed separately in each one of those areas, utilizing different definitions instead of creating one definition that covers all of the rural areas and what the intent is there, and whether they were just pulling out of the subcommittee or what. That would be nice to have that better defined instead of worded differently as to what area you're going to. Thank you.
Mr. Martin, could you please clarify which document your comments are in relationship to?
The sound is coming from some square other than Martin Square. It's Alan.
Sorry.
Alan Songstead. You're not on mute.
That was coming from the AM 000724 land use comp update. At least at what is posted on the planning departments on that update.
Is it the staff report?
No, he's talking about the draft.
He's talking about the draft component itself on
Okay,
page 19
just-
of 21.
The page numbers weren't tracking for me with what he was referencing. Because you get into, I don't see.
I think, so
Scroll down further. It's like, these designations.
Oh, okay.
Character,
Okay.
The planning commission pulled from each one of the
Gotcha.
separate areas,
All right, thank you for the
rather than
clarification.
defining it as a group.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. I wasn't able to track the page numbers when you were making your comments, so
What
wanted to be
page
sure I had the
number-
correct document.
what page number was that on for you, Commissioner Domke?
21?
So when the community is pulling theirs up, they're pulling it off of the actual planning website and I think ours is still, has been updated as they've given it to us, but when we're in this meeting, I pull it out of here instead of using our file because that's what they're probably referencing.
That's why the
is that
page
what-
numbers are different?
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
thank
that's
you.
where he got that. All right, next up, land use component comments. Everybody is opposed. Corrine Jones, you're up. Look how far they moved the microphone thinking people would sit closer, come closer, but it didn't.
Hi, I'm Corrine Jones, and I own property. Oh, this isn't working, right? So I don't have to use it?
You do have to use it because that's how the people online can hear you.
Oh,
But just
hi.
state Bonner County resident or not.
Okay, Bonner County resident,
Thank you.
and I own property on Meadow Lane, which is not too far from the gravel pit. And my husband and I guess I got in trouble last time I said my husband and I have owned that property since '83. And I understand we're talking about a change from rural 5 to a mixed, but I've lived there a long time. And it's affected me personally, health-wise. I was there when the temporary batch plants, which could be open door to the mixed, having an asphalt plant there. And that's what I'm going to address, because the impact to our little community of where we've lived without an asphalt plant for so long. But the batch plants released formaldehyde. And formaldehyde in some people, the irritation from the particles from the formaldehyde within 1.5 miles radius can cause asthma in some people. I'm one. I now live with asthma for the rest of my life since the batch plants. So I didn't know what was happening to me. I knew I was having trouble breathing. Obviously, I lived there for a long time before the batch plants ever occurred. And it took a little while to figure it out. And when I went to the lung specialist, he said, yeah, formaldehyde can cause asthma. And I didn't bring a paper from my doctor, because last time we had one of these hearings, they wouldn't even accept it. But I'm just telling you that I live this every day. Every day. And there's different things that trigger asthma, and I'm sure that, you know somebody that's got it or whatever, but my concern is how much our community and our little neighborhood is going to change when the mixed opens up the door for not just the asphalt plant, but all kinds of things, because they have not, as the gravel pit, been good neighbors in the past. So
Thank you.
thank you for considering.
Thank you. All right, Larry Smith. You can come in and sit on this side if you want. Yeah. They just wanted to be able to exit quickly. Mr. Smith.
Larry Smith.
It was on TV too. We all saw it.
Yes, Sagal, Idaho.
Right?
I was prepared for a little bit different. Mr. Commissioner Domke kind of addressed my big concern, and that is mixed use is a bit ambiguous. It's all encompassing, and if you're going to change the rules and regulations, at least be a little bit more specific. I object violently to the asphalt plant being included in that change. Because the asphalt plant, if you check back in your records, you'll find a lot of comment about it. And, but as I say, my main difficulty was the ambiguity. We need to know what's going to go in there, what isn't, and just exactly how much. And I would be interested in attending some of your workshops too, if it's possible. Other than that, you kind of shot me down there a while ago.
Everybody can attend the workshops, and so where you find those, or you're going to see those listed on the Bonner County Planning website. And so we try to make sure that everybody hears about that also on our Tuesdays. If you didn't get to see one, you can actually watch them in on the Bonner County website. At the bottom, you can see the different titles of our meetings, and you can see the workshops. And if you didn't get to watch one, but you think you're going to have questions, email one of the commissioners after you watch one of those videos and say, I heard you say this is what I want you to consider. So you can watch those. Gail. Cameron. Do you want to take the microphone and sit down and speak?
I'll attempt to stand. Here we are again facing you. Lynn Scott's land has been pretty much destroyed by them with the gravel pit. I have photos. The neighbors have suffered the consequences of their choice to strip their land of resources, and they want to change the rules now to mixed use. I know they want to put in an asphalt plant, we've done this before, or whatever. As I see it, one guy or one family wants to change things for our community, and our community does not want mixed use. We like our property. I just want to say, don't give them your blessing. We're more families that are against it than one for it.
I'm going to give a disclaimer comment here. We know there's a file coming up on the Lynn Scott piece, where if we can try to focus on this particular file that we're talking about is land use. You guys want to make an impact on how the board makes a decision on land use. If the comments that come are about a file that we're going to make a different decision on, you're not focused on this particular one, and it doesn't help insert your opinion into this particular decision. You guys are tying it together by making the comment about mixed use, but you guys can make strong comments on mixed use without addressing that file that we are going to see, because what it limits me on is if I want to give you a comment, but you're talking about a file that we're coming up on, it's a file that's coming up, so we're not able to maybe ask a clarifying question. If we're talking about mixed use, I think a lot of you have that questions about that use. But if we stick to what you want me to hear about mixed use, not that asphalt plant, then I can digest it a lot better. So that's speaking for me and how I hear it. I'm aware of that file, but I also have heard a lot of.
We are. I think everybody here is like.
I get that, but I think that you guys want us to hear your comments on mixed use in the area, because that's what we're talking about. So I'm reporting back to you. You want me to digest that, I want to hear it, but I don't want to talk about, I can't comment on a file that's coming up.
But we don't have any pending files for the Lynn Scott's gravel pit. So we don't have any pending files of any quasi-judicial applicant-driven. I believe most of the comments you're getting is, as part of this legislative change, as presented by the Planning Commission, is they were requesting or included in these changes mixed-use designation for all the gravel pits across the county, to include Mr. Lynn's.
Right, so I guess this is being used as a way to address something that is being seen as in the future. So it feels like we're heading that direction, so that's why I see it as a future thing. So I get what you guys are doing, I'm just saying,
Can I ask you
Next
one
one.
question? When will that become about?
so I'm saying it feels like that's what, I understand what this could change based on what that designation is. And so if the board has to hear something about a file coming in the future, I don't want to mix the two issues together. This is talking about the planning, the component that is mixed use.
Right, I understand that. My question was, do you know when that, but we're here.
Everyone is here is on the outcome of it, how this changes is really what you guys are wanting to make sure we hear your concern about mixed use.
Before I get started, maybe.
You just knew you were next?
I did.
She
I'm gonna
planned
bring up
this.
some, and
Thank you, Director Guevara.
also, if it's okay, I have time for 6 minutes, and my husband's here to give me, and you don't want to hear from him, trust me. I'm just telling you. Anyways, John Plant, from Sagal, also
Wait, did he confirm you're giving her an extra 3?
Confirm, yeah.
She just said she was taking it, so I want to respect. I'm sure how it works, but she just snatched
So,
it.
I'm a citizen also of the group of Citizens Against the Asphalt Plant. I called our attorney who represented the Sagal community and discussed writing you a letter explaining what's at stake in this comprehensive plan change. He told me you should know our own non-conforming laws, and if you knew them, you would not adopt mixed use in the gravel pit. For Bonner County, I'm going to explain Bonner County's grandfathered laws. They started in 1981, and whoever had a business running prior could continue operating, but they cannot expand beyond what was legal. These laws exist, one, to protect the communities by stopping nonconforming uses from growing and putting more pressure on neighbors and community. Two, they protect the property owners by allowing them to continue lawful uses without being shut down. Here's the exact wording that I just gave you. In 12340, it is further the extent of this title that nonconformities shall not be enlarged upon, expanded, or extended, nor be used for grounds for adding other structures or other things prohibited elsewhere in the same district and zone. And then 343 It says, "No such nonconforming use shall be enlarged or increased, nor extended or occupy a greater area." And it continues to say, "Shall not be moved in whole or in part on any other portion or lot or parcel." The comprehensive plan is supposed to be Bonner County's blueprint for the future, but it's also used right now and in the future for decisions for CUPs and for zone changes. If we get it wrong, we open the door for years of problems, just like we've had in Sagal. Last week, when I was trying to speak, I was told not to name specific landowners, and I understand. But the reality is, what happened in Sagal is exactly why changing land use in nonconforming land is not appropriate. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Picture this. I won't bring up names. In 1981, a 17-acre gravel pit existed in Sagal. It's grandfathered in, meaning it could expand another 10% without a cut, or 50% with one. Over time, the pit grows bigger and deeper, never going for a conditional use permit. In 1995, the pit owner asked for a cut for an asphalt plant. By then, it's roughly 60 acres. The county approves it, the asphalt plant, but the CUP is never issued because they failed a major condition, widening Highway 95 to add an acceleration and deceleration lanes to the north. Neighbors were so relieved, but the growth continued, and so did impacts, blasting without warning, shaking homes and foundations, running equipment all night, no notice, trucks backing up and beeping into the early mornings, rock crushing so intense it rattled from houses from Gun Club to Sunrise Circle. When neighbors complained, they were told, "We're grandfathered. We can do that." Between 1995 and 2015, the pit ran a temporary asphalt plant a few times in the summers, and neighbors could feel it. They endured odors, constant buzzing, and breathing issues. In 2015, the owners applied for an industrial zone for a permanent asphalt plant, denied by the county commissioners because they had no urban sewer and water. But in 2018, an amendment passed quietly, and nobody from Sagal cared because it didn't have anything to do with the Lynn Scott pit, or, a gravel pit in Sagal. Then in November 2018, the Sagal pit applied for another cut for an asphalt plant, and it was allowed because the county had passed an unlawful amendment that allowed them to be asphalt plants in rural ag and forest. Sorry, I'm shaking so bad. I called Gary Allen, author of the Idaho Land Use Handbook. He was shocked it was even proposed on non-conforming land, especially given the pit's massive unlawful growth. We proved the plant had grown 100 acres of disturbed land up to 500% beyond legal limits, added parcels illegally, even faced lawsuits by neighbors, and our evidence was ignored by the county commissioners, so we appealed. The Idaho Supreme Court sided with us, claiming the asphalt plant was not a distinct, separate issue from the gravel pit itself, and made the county pay our appeal fees. And I quote from the Supreme Court, "The county acted in a manner that was arbitrary and capricious in refusing to address the gravel pit's compliance with the nonconforming use from the Bonner County Revised Code." Yet, instead of learning from the ruling after 2 years, during those 2 years after, they tried twice more, passing amendments allowing expansions of nonconforming gravel pits and allowing them to have asphalt plants. In June 2020, in the last amendment attempt, I saw wording overhead on a projector that was code language that had never been adopted, never been discussed publicly, but was sent to the codifier and was legal. It said, "A batch plant shall only locate in an active gravel pit. A batch plant placed in a gravel pit shall be considered a separate discrete use and not the increased intensity of the grandfathered use to operate the gravel pit itself." How did that get there? This was nearly identical to the language the Supreme Court rejected. I had to fight that for over a year to get it removed from our laws. In 2000, because it was illegally done. In 2022, the Peak Lynn Scott Amendment then showed up, and it was approved to expand their parcel lines. Another total ignorance of the nonconforming laws, and our attorney's letter's explanation to it was completely ignored. We were exhausted. What more damage can the gravel pit do to our community that hasn't already happened, as long as they reclaim and stay rural 5? That's all that we've cared about. We moved next to a gravel pit, we want a gravel pit to stay there. The gravel pit has a reclamation plan with Idaho Department of Lands and can expand their parcel lines to 200 acres, deep and wide. Truly unlawful expansion by our laws. Now here we are faced with changing the same land to mixed use with a planning commissioner explaining we want like with like. Industrial use, why not add more industrial use? It's the plan of the future, but it's absolutely frustrating. I have to say, shame on the county for not following our own non-conforming laws and allowing growth to go unchecked and continuing to attempt to change the land, now to mixed use. Over 1,000 people have signed this change.org, not wanting more industrial use in Sagal, and for years we continue to try to be heard. Finally, we would like to be heard. And I don't care, it's the Linscotts. They're part of everything. Thank you.
Jonna, did you want to give your document in this meeting so that it goes in this record that you read? You gave us the rule, but you read a lot more. You can hand it here and we can keep it. Thank you. All right, our next one is Jennifer Ekstrom. It's been a long time since you've been here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity to give comments. My name is Jennifer Ekstrom. I work with the Idaho Conservation League based here in Sandpoint. And I want to commend the Planning Commission for their diligent and mostly great work on the comp plan update. Although there are a number of outstanding issues that do still need to be addressed. So thanks to each one of you for your desire to give this due diligence and thoughtful review. I also appreciate the concerns that are expressed here already today about mixed use, though that's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to ask to direct you to the land use component, land suitability, section 3.4 on recreation. It states that the county has chosen the recreational resort community land use map designations as a method to recognize areas that are intrinsically suitable for developments centered on sports, outdoor attractions, recreational uses, etc. Then section 4.2, proposed land use designations, recreational community. That allows for urban densities in areas centered on recreational facilities. I'm adding emphasis to the word recreational facilities for a variety of purposes. Appropriate zoning districts for this land use designation include commercial, rural service center, and recreation, all of which allow for commercial enterprises. And rather than selectively applying this recreational community designation to areas that really center on public recreation and recreation commerce, it has been applied very broadly on the proposed map. It has been applied to many areas apparently just because smaller private lots have already been created along the shorelines of our lakes, but whereas it's completely unreasonable to think about commerce or public recreation taking place, these are private lots. This designation should be applied in a forward-thinking manner and not retroactively applied just because those smaller lots exist. Additionally, I'd like to highlight that the area around Schweitzer Mountain Resort is proposed as a pretty massive swath of recreational community designation, far beyond the resort and the facilities that they provide to our community. So the land use component and the land use map still need work. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to do it thoughtfully.
Thank you. Linda Dunn.
Hi, I'm Linda Dunn. I am a resident of Sunrise Circle, which is about a mile away from the Linscott gravel pit. I've lived there for 40 years. I'm a board member of the Sunrise Terrace Homeowners Association. Our neighborhood consists of 21 homes with 49 residents. 16 of those are senior citizens and 12 are children. I'm asking you to vote against changing the land designation in our area to mixed use, as that will allow anything to be built in our area, especially at the gravel pit. The Linscott family has been trying to put an asphalt plant at the gravel pit for years. Changing the land designation to mixed use would make that a sure thing, as I'm sure the planning committee, a member of the Linscott family is on the committee. And the neighbors surrounding the gravel pit spent a considerable amount of time and money to make sure the asphalt plant was not approved. Our reasons for objecting to the asphalt plant has not changed. Air pollution, our water source contaminated, increased noise, and our property values would plummet. I personally would have to move since I have asthma and I would not be able to stand the air day or night. It would be impossible, though, for me to sell my home. I ask that you put yourself in our place. How would you vote if it was in your neighborhood or your backyard? We are not able to vote on this change, but you are. You represent us. Please vote to the benefit of the majority of your constituents and not for the benefit of only one business. Please vote against this change to mixed use. Thank you.
Thank you. Lizbeth Murray.
Hi, I'm Lisbeth Murray. I'm a neighbor of Linda here. I support everything what she has to say. I believe Jonna has already articulated what we all feel. I moved to Sandpoint about 30 years ago, did not go to Gun Club Road because I saw the gravel pit was there. Never in 1,000 years did I think that that gravel pit will affect us. I am in my 70s now. I don't have any kids to send to college. I don't really care if the aquifer gets affected, but there are children that live in my neighborhood now. There are new kids that are there now. I have elderly neighbors that will get affected by this. I was in a healthcare profession, and I know that air pollution definitely affects all of us. But really, there are people who invested in that homes, young kids with young families. They will be unable to sell their land, or they put so much money in their land and never be able to get that investment back. I want to thank you for the job you're doing and for listening to us. Listen to us more because, well, we are the community. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you. Tracy Eigert.
No,
You're good?
yes, I'm good, thank you.
You're co-signing with Jonna?
Yes.
All right, confirmed. All right, Lynn.
Hello. Darcy, can you hear me?
I can state county residents as well when you speak.
Yes, Darcy Small, Sagal. My comments are regarding mixed use and industrial designations.
Okay.
The current zoning code in the definition of industrial district states that the purposes of the industrial district are accomplished by limiting residential, or quote, limiting residential, institutional, office, and other non-industrial uses to those that are accessory to industrial activities. So why then purposely create a mixed-use designation that would intentionally subvert that? It would not protect residential or commercial uses that would be negatively impacted by noise, dust, odors, traffic, etc., and could reduce the value of their property and businesses. It would not protect industrial uses from complaints, opposition, and possible legal actions by neighbors. It was stated at the last workshop that the Planning Commission could not find a suitable area for an industrial designation, so they included it in the mixed-use designation, which is typically single-family residential, multifamily residential, commercial, and maybe some light industrial set as storage. Finding an area for industrial is difficult, but just because something is hard doesn't mean that you should throw up your hands and toss it in with incompatible uses, creating situations that are going to come back to bite the county. There are tons of examples out there of how communities have dealt with this. Sometimes it is a specific land use designation. Sometimes it's criteria-based or a combination of both. Also, someone at the last workshop recommended that you step back and involve the economic development people, look at the type of industries that you would want to attract and what the requirements are. That's a sound recommendation. It doesn't appear that there's a new industry beating the county's doors down right now, and the existing industries can continue to operate as is while you spend the time to get this right. And it's important that you do get this right. I suggest that you remove the industrial portion from the mixed use designation, or actually just remove that entire designation, since there's not going to be adequate urban level services for high density residential or most commercial and industrial uses anytime soon, or at least in the life of this iteration of the plan. And then tackle the issue of industrial development separately. Thank you, and thank you for your refreshing diligence in including the public and for doing your homework on this.
Thank you. Teresa Heisner?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Risa Eisner, Priest River. I am opposed to the mixed use and rural designations. Coincidentally, yesterday I saw Woods hauling very large mining equipment up north to an unknown pit to include conveyor belts, rock crushers, dozer crane. I don't know what they're up to, but they're up to something. Allowing this type of mining is a nuisance to surrounding areas, even those who do not live near the site. Dump trucks traveling alongside logging trucks on these small little roads where many recreation vehicles travel to get to the mountains, to include children on bicycles. I mean, it's going to be disastrous. So you guys really need to think of the ramifications of allowing this. Excuse me. I also want to add that it was heartbreaking to listen to Jonna, because I can honestly say I understand what she's going through after my fight with a Canadian company that wanted to put a coal burning smelter in our area. So please, no mixed use in rural designations. It's not appropriate. Thank you.
Any further comment on this section? Yes, ma'am. Monica.
Sorry, I wasn't going to do this. Monica Gunner in Bonner County resident. It's just not the right place for mixed use. Sagal is a very important community. It's not just Sagal, I'm sure, that's being changed to mixed use. Mixed use does not belong to me in anywhere in Bonner County. But Sagal is the wrong place. I think it's being, I'm trying to keep it mixed use without saying the gravel pit, but that is what's being changed to mixed use. So the gravel pit word comes out. We've put up with the gravel pit. We're not affected, the Gunners aren't affected at this point, but if it gets changed to mixed use, we're all affected just as bad as all these people are affected. It's unfair it is one family that's asking for this change. Every other family in Sagal is voting against the gravel pit, or hoping against the gravel pit, or mixed use, whatever you want to say, it is the gravel pit. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on land use? What?
I just want to thank you guys. Corinne Jones again, Bonner County residents. I just want to thank you for listening to us and giving us the opportunity to express how we feel. Our community's been there a long time. Generations and generations have lived there peacefully together until all of this started in the 90s. And I just want you to know that we're going to band together. And I pray that you consider all of our history that we have together. Thank you.
Is there anybody here who's teetering on the seat of maybe I want to jump in? Because it's an important conversation, because afterwards the board has to take, that's how we know what you guys think. And I understand it's nice to say I'm co-signing, but there are strength in numbers. There's a lot of you in here. You're all coming from the same area. And I recognize you guys are all pinpointing where this direction can go, but the use itself impacts the entire county. And so that's why I'm saying let's focus on the impact that you're trying to bring forward for mixed use as it's written in the comprehensive plan, even though I do recognize people have an example from which they're drawing an experience from. So is there anybody, we'll even tap Jonna's husband, are you too afraid to speak, or did she get it out? No one's afraid to make a comment, because that's what this is here for. And I think our board's done a good job of making sure you guys know we want to hear your comment, because a comment not given is a comment not heard. All right, Michelle, look, 3 people took me up on it. Michelle Johnson.
Michelle Johnson, Bonner County resident. I would also like to say that I support our fellow Sagal residents, and I also am opposed to changing the designation to mixed use. And I also too would like to say thank you to the commissioners for being willing to hear comments. I know in the past that's been a challenge for people to voice their concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Dave Bowman.
Okay, so, I wasn't going to speak because I've already submitted a lot of stuff in writing. But if you're just going to keep begging for people to speak, I'll just talk.
All right, I changed my mind. Wayne Martin.
No, too late.
Go ahead.
I'll be brief though, but I think not everybody necessarily has a grip on some of the nuances here. And I think it's important and I don't want to put words in anyone else's mouth, but I don't think most people object to taking the current land use designation that is, remind me, transition, and changing the name of that to mixed use, which is, I think that if you look at what is allowed in those two, you're going to find really no significant difference. And the big issue here, and from my perspective, and I think a lot of others too, is taking parcels that are, and this has come up in the planning commission way before it got to you, but taking parcels that are rural 5 in this case and amending the map to make them be transition, which then opens up to a myriad of uses that would not be allowed in R5, and they're surrounded by R5. It does bring to question, why are those particular parcels being chosen? And I think that maybe helps express a little bit of what some of these people are commenting on. And I have expressed, and I stay with it, that it is important to not look at what a current parcel is being used for or how big it is, and therefore change its land use designation to something else. Non-conforming, and I know I've already said this in writing, but I think it's important for people to hear, non-conforming is an integral part of our county code, and it has a purpose. And it is to allow uses that now are not accepted by code, but were pre-existing, to continue. And that's its purpose. And as Jonna pointed out, that there are then limitations on the expansion, right? It can expand a certain, and that's the use or a structure, either one, has limitations on how much it can expand when it's non-conforming. If you then go and change the land use designation to something else, that takes away those protections. And they're there for a reason. And there is nothing, there seems to be I know that there is a certain amount of angst over the appearance of the map. And it just doesn't, it looks spotty because we have these things here and there and it doesn't look uniform and it's kind of chaotic. Well, you can blame that on past boards, right? But it is what it is. And I really encourage you to not, if you're going to change any, do it with extreme circumspect caution, and don't just make wholesale changes. Non-conforming has a very good purpose, and it's beneficial to the county residents. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Wayne Martin, round 2.
Wayne Martin, Bonner County resident. I hadn't even thought about the gravel pit issue on this. We have a gravel pit near us that could very easily, if this was changed, decide to change the way that they're going. If you're going to be allowing the change, that's going to impact the health and safety of the county residents, especially those that are in that area. That should be a strong factor and a reason on a decision, and how that decision is made, positive or negative, for that business. I also feel that businesses should be financially responsible for the health and welfare, financial losses on their properties that are near and all. It happens in other industries. And I think that those businesses should be aware that the potential is there, that, they can be liable. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave, is that asking for a round two? Or
I would like to, if it's okay, just throw in a little adder.
for someone who had nothing to say? Go ahead.
I know,
Round
but
two.
I've
You're
also,
good.
I've said this in I think the last workshop or maybe the previous one. I would encourage you to consider taking because we can't all agree, but I'm going to state a lot of people do. Heavy industrial does not belong with high density housing. And high density housing is another one of those things that we come back to the need for a glossary of terms, because high density housing, the sky's the limit, depending on whose definition you use. But if you pull industrial out and make it its own land use, and the Planning Commission rightly said, well, if we did that, we wouldn't know where to put it. And what I said in the last workshop where I brought this up is you can still create the designation for industrial, and you give it the parameters that would be required to fit, right? Access to transportation, adequate sewer and water, whatever else kinds of stuff would be appropriate for that. And then you don't have to actually go on the map and designate areas. That can come later. If someone has an industrial use that they want to apply for, then they can go through the process of looking for a map amendment and see whether it's not appropriate. I would strongly encourage you to consider that, because it would help eliminate one of the very big conflicts that potentially comes with mixed use. And I know that the concept is, well, that can all be addressed in zoning, but you have no guarantee that it will be. And this would just help alleviate some of that conflict. So thanks. I'm done. I won't come back, I promise.
All right. At this time, we'll close public comment on the motion that's on the table. Does the board want to discuss comments heard or any questions to planning before we take a vote on the motion?
There's a lot. There's a lot to consider, and I think I don't want to try to get into a lot of depth of discussion at the moment, because I really want to try to put some proposed options on the table in a workshop to look at pros and cons. Because I really don't think it's simple. I don't think there's an easy answer. There is absolutely consideration for existing nonconformances, adjacent parcels, thinking about entire neighborhoods. And we do still have this obligation to think about the future. That's the whole reason for a comprehensive plan. We have to understand and figure out where growth happens. We have to allow growth to happen, and we have to plan for it responsibly. So all of that sits in a really difficult, conflict with one another. And so we have to figure out that balance. And I think that's what the Planning Commission grappled with, and that's what we have to grapple with. So that's why I think it's important that we go through these workshops that we're discussing to really look at different ideas that have been presented by the public that we bring forward and consider how that might occur. I mean, I'll just throw on the table one of the thoughts that I have currently, but I haven't been able to flesh out yet for full consideration, would be if we had a heavy mixed use type of definition that was just industrial and commercial, and then a light mixed use that was just commercial and residential. We could potentially isolate the heavy use by buffering it with a light use before you get to residential specific areas. And buffering to me is always the solution from a planning perspective that makes sense whenever you have the space to do it. In some locations, there may not be the space, and so that becomes a more challenging area to think about. And that's why I think we need to go through these workshops, because those are the types of things that I think we have to consider.
Commissioner Korn?
I don't have anything right now. Good point, so.
I think that Commissioner Domke's suggestion provides for a lot of good points. There are some comments that were made today when you're looking at especially the definition of terms, and when you look at, and I'll be specific to, because everybody's here from Sagal, so when you look at the sub-area comp plan and what the mission and goal of that is, I can see where there's a concern of by definition, not speaking of an individual item, but are we in conflict, and how do we maintain the rural character that is identified in that particular sub-area plan and equally address the growth and development of the county as a whole. And that is where, when I look at not the map, when I'm just looking at the terms, because I also think there's an argument for saying, do we put a map or conditions on where we could put this? Because when I look at the comment while Mr. Bowman was speaking, when I look at the percentage of where is industrial at in Bonner County, we have it at 0% anywhere. There isn't a spot there, and I think I think there's an argument for taking a look at if we identify where in the map where that can grow, is that the approach that we want to take versus this is what the definition and this is what it looks like, and how do we buffer residential? And the way mixed use is, it allows for a large spectrum, which I think that's part of what the community is having concerns of, is you could go from 0 to 100 very fast with the way that we have it written. And if we're going to identify where in the map do we put that, does that create, is the map creating the problem and not the definition, because it's being specific versus allowing us to define the terms, and as the area comes forward saying, I want it to be mixed use or something. I don't know. I think we need more conversation on it, but I hear that argument. I also thought Mr. Bowman's comment on the transitional comment was an interesting, I think he said that before somewhere. I think it's an interesting thing when you hear some of the comments people made of, do we have that essentially, and it's just a different word that we might be calling it. So I think there's a lot to unpack in comments. I'm sticking to specifically mixed use because I hear that's what you're saying. And I'm using what you guys are saying as an example of mixed use. I'm not making a decision on the growth of somebody's project. It's where does mixed use in terms of our land use component on this fit. I think that you guys have raised a lot of good concerns in terms of public comment and the impact of the change, because that's what you're here for, is the change can potentially impact the area, and you're asking us to consider if, in this example, this change were to happen, does that impact change the vision that is the sub-area plan of the area that you live in and that you invested in? I see that as what you're asking. I think that I think some of you have raised some very valid things that we could take a look at. And I think it actually further argues why we need to define terms. Because the other comment of high density residential in that area, some of it's just larger acreage of land. And so is that high residential? It just feels like it's a little bit of a bouillabaisse of a definition. So I hear the issue. I do not have an answer on the issues raised, but I think they're valid points on that the board needs to consider before a vote is cast on what does mixed use mean.
Yeah, and just as just a quick point of information, the current land use designation of transition that we have in the county, which then, was developed into our county zoning, we do have industrial zoned parcels throughout the county. So that's zoning as compared to land use designation. But I think, again, there's additional, the Planning Commission spent time looking at and considering this type of information. Now I think we need to do the same thing, and it's just going to take us a little bit of time to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of layers of that information, like you're talking about, that we have to, I believe we need to look at and consider what that looks like, because this designation decision is ultimately going to lead to zone changes of parcels, most likely, in a lot of instances. And that's the kind of impact we need to consider that's being brought up. And so if we start to look across the county just at the current zoning, and you see where we have industrial happening, I think that's going to lead to the next level of this conversation. That's going to be valuable.
Yes, and I was looking at our existing land use table where we've got the acres and the percentage. I was using the percentage that they put in that. I think I want to also touch on the comment about the recreation, because some people have also put in some comments about recreation that looks like it's moving towards just development in the recreational area and potentially changing what that footprint is. by the way that that's worded. I think that that's also something that comes out with defining the terms that we talked about in some of those different meetings of workshops of what does that mean? What is high recreation and low recreation? One of the things in one of our workshops we addressed was the way in which some terms we were talking about more Schweitzer related, but we had removed, I think we called it scenic versus scenic and rural. And so we added rural because that is how in a lot of these sub-area plans that we're identifying the area so that when we're looking at recreation, that we are recognizing the need to preserve both of those elements of that. And I think that that comment that was made about recreation also gets addressed in how we're defining the terms, because that's part of what community has said they don't like as you go through the comp plan. Words are used throughout, but we don't know what is the definition of this word this time versus knowing this is where I know what this means. Because in a way, you guys should know you should really know what your outcome is going to be because we've done a good job of this plan and we are keeping it updated and we're defining what we're talking about. And it's not conditional on who's on the planning commission or who's up here, but that the document helps guide. And I think that's also heard. And so hopefully the community has patience as we say, we need another workshop, we're not ready to vote because we're done in terms of we've received the completed stuff. But the board is trying to do a good job of reviewing it, and it's not going to be perfect at all because this is our update after years of not updating it, but we're trying to do our best to do the most we can on the first blush. So I think it was recreation and mixed use were the only comment, and then a comment on transition that was used, and industrial. Did we miss something somebody else said about our land use before we take a vote on the motion on the table?
There were some comments made about information that was in the appendices, but just to clarify, that those are excerpts from the sub-area plans as a reference. They're not actually actionable language, so to speak, within the designation language that defines what the proposed land use designations would be. So just to help clarify, I looked at that section. Once I finally got my page numbers figured out, I looked at that, and it's Appendix B, rural character. And so it says, rural character as envisioned by 4 of the 5 sub-area committees, since the 5th one didn't have a specific definition. So it's reference. They're helping us see the reference information that helped informed what they recommended to us. But in and of itself, it is not a definition of the proposed land use designations.
I think someone did make mention to economic development and pulling in kind of external resources to also address kind of growth. And I think that by and large is something that is occurring currently as this plan is being updated, but also from a county perspective of looking at not just what does the county want, but how do we interact and interface with the cities that are outliers too. So I think that is also being pulled into the area, because I think the comment that was made when economic development came up is, as we're looking for the different mixed uses, where are the corporations looking to come, and what does that look like in Bonner County? So I think that hits the public comment, and in part I like doing that so that you can hear that we heard what you said and we're articulating it back to you, so that it's a thoughtful consideration. That doesn't mean you're going to get the outcome that you want. It's that you heard that you hold us accountable for, I know that you heard me because you said it kind of deal. But I think there's a lot that this board has to consider on what planning put together, the commission put together, and the public have given comments on this particular area.
Actually, really quick to the economic development, and more important, how that addresses the industrial question. I do know that came up in a prior workshop, and one of the planning commissioners, and now I can't remember which one, talked about the fact that they had a gentleman who was discussed as being a resource come to one of their meetings, and that the description was essentially, ideally what they would look for would be 100-acre tracts of land or larger that had direct adjacency to the railroad transportation system. And so that type of criteria, I think, is significantly larger in scale than what our county has or is looking to promote. And so I think that's part of why we haven't seen a specific area called out in the plan to that end.
And so Brent Baker is the person that's the executive director of the economic development. And so one of the things that I meet with Mayor Grimm tomorrow to talk, that's one of the elements is economic development and making, you got to get a seat at the table so that you're part of that discussion. And that's part of opening the door so that we have transparent communication that then I can come back to this meeting and say, this is what we talked about. So that's a huge piece. I did want to, some of you mentioned the respiratory issues. I haven't seen anybody give anything regarding the health and safety issue that you're bringing forward. So if somebody has something like that that they want to be reviewed, I'm not sure why you couldn't say, Commissioner Williams, this is an issue that I want you to address, or at least to know if, because you said you submitted something, but it wasn't accepted by the county.
Yeah, from the doctor,
So
from my lung doctor.
So I don't see why the county wouldn't if that's what you wanted to submit for review. Other people have done things like that where they send a note to a commissioner saying, this is what I'm saying.
Different board. That's the problem. Nobody listens to us.
So,
You guys can.
listen, you have a new board, so if you hold us to a standard, if I have to beg you to give a comment and you don't give the comment, then you can't hold me to, I didn't give the comment. So if you have something you guys want us to see before we vote, send it.
Specifically address the gases and the.
Whatever you want us to consider, it's our job to kick it out and say it didn't apply. But if you don't give it and you say somebody else told me I couldn't send it, then I don't get to choose how to use any information.
Just, I'd like to add a clarifying comment. It's really helpful to actually send that. It's great if you want to send it to the commissioners. It's also really helpful if you that same email goes to the planning department and you state what file it is that it's associated with, because the public has the right to comment on any aspect they want of a file. Whether board members agree, disagree, you have the right to express anything you want in your comment. And if you want to be sure that it gets put into the file and gets considered by the decision-making body so that it sits in the record, just make sure that it's really helpful to include, either send directly to or copy the planning department in the email, because they are the administrative group that's making sure that all of that data goes into the public record for that particular file that's being heard. And if it just comes to a single commissioner or a couple commissioners, the only way that goes into the record for the entire board to hear is if that commissioner notices the fact that they were the only one on the email and then they forward it to planning and tell planning to please add it to the record. So it's important that communication that you want to be heard gets sent the right way so it doesn't get missed.
So one of, probably like a lot of you, before I was a commissioner, I did the I need to make sure I copy so I can prove I sent it thing. You can just send it, you want to send it to each of us, that's fine, but the BOCC staff at Bonner County, that is actually going to staff and they distribute it to all three commissioners. So some counties are set up to where all the commissioners use one kind of box, but we have a staff email that then gets distributed to us that you can use instead of saying I want each individual commissioner in case you forget what our individual emails are. But Commissioner Domke is right, you want it attached to a file, just make sure you copy planning, because all I do is if I see that it didn't go to planning, I forward it on to planning. And so it would get attached to this particular file. Don't send something that you do not want the public to see, because once you send it, it's a public record. So cross off the demographic information if you're wanting to send something very specific.
So the file number that you're requesting is on this paper?
Yep.
So I use this as the reference?
Yes,
Okay.
for that, because that's where you talked about the land use designation that you wanted. If there isn't a file number, you can still send it to BOCC staff and the commissioners, and we'd all three get it. But if you have a file to attach it to that you want consideration, because we should all read every single public comment before we make a decision, those comments get attached to that file. So I'm accountable to you to have known what that comment was. So like when Jonna read, what she read was not what she handed me. So I wrote one of five, and I'm going to hand it over, and it's going to get loaded in there so that everybody sees what she read. Okay?
Director, did
I
you
just,
have additional?
I just wanted to kind of double tap what Commissioner Williams said, is once you submit it, it becomes a public record, so redact whatever information. If it's some medical, personal information you don't want shared to the public, just redact that beforehand. We've had one before where someone submitted some medical documentation, then got mad that it was part of a record, so, and they wanted us to redact it for them, which.
I'll be gentle.
Yeah, but again, to that end, please understand that almost everything, there's a little bit of things that are protected, but almost everything you send, even to an individual commissioner, can become a public records request item and become fully exposed to anyone in the public. So just be aware of that. It's again to what the director was saying, just decide what information you want to be publicly available. That's your personal information.
But then to the board, the Planning Commission, when they revised and worked on this component, they tackled first the text and then they went to the map. So to try to put some guardrails on your workshops, I would recommend that we kind of tackle the same idea of work on the text, refine the text into what you want, and then go to the map and get the map to reflect what the text is. So rather than bouncing back and forth, I can try to get you guys to stay on track because sometimes we move around a little bit.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would suggest at least 2 meetings dedicated to the text, just given on the how long it took to get through this implementation component that we just workshopped. I would say at least two, probably 3 meetings on the text, and then from there, the map. Staff will work with GIS to give you guys a map that you can drop pins on and make comments about, similar to what we did with the Planning Commission. So as after we get done with the text, you guys can review it, make comments, and then we can make changes to the draft map and then publish that. So that sounds like a decent plan.
So do we think 3 meetings? So my mind says 4 meetings on the text only because we only just posted kind of there's more stuff we might add and we're asking community to read it. 2 meetings on the map so that we're not, because it looks like we could get those scheduled before we hit holiday time. Which is I don't want to schedule into a time when less people are around because we're starting to turn into the season of people doing the I don't want to live in the snow mindset, and then they come back and we'll have changed the plan. People don't like that. So what is the number that we want? I want to be mindful of not going middle of November past. I don't like that because you're hitting the time when we know people aren't here, and I don't think we want to make a decision in that regard.
So to backwards plan, it's a 22-day notice minimum once we complete the final draft.
Yep.
So if you want to have a hearing, say mid-August, mid-November, then you should have a final draft no later than the end of October.
So
third week
my
of October.
estimation is by the 15th of October, we should have a draft completed.
And then do you want to have weekly workshops or every 2 weeks? Just note, the planning commission did weekly workshops.
Right. So let me do, if we say the 15th allows enough time for a final to be reviewed by the community, because we're working backwards in part because we also have a conference in the month of September that the board is out for. And then at the end of October, I have a conference to do. So if we did 4 meetings once a week, we could knock it out by the middle of October. And if we noticed each one to include both text and map, but we control the meeting in such that if we were done with text, that we could hit the map, that we could finish sooner. That way we weren't limited to say, well, this is only text, now we need to go to the map. That would be a better way to notice it. That way we have the flexibility, especially if we want to toggle between having that kind of map discussion, because I don't know what may come up, but if we said both at the same time, then we're not hamstringing ourselves.
And I think, looks like we could probably make 5 workshops happen if we wanted to hit that, like, October 15th date.
Yeah.
For noticing the hearing.
So if we picked Wednesdays as the day for the planning hearings, because I would like to not couple it with something else planning related. if you don't mind, so it's
Yep.
not really long. The month of September, Wednesdays are not that filled, and it would allow for a consistent 1:30 workshop, and if we were focused 1:30 to 3 o'clock workshop on these two items, we could get done if we did it every Wednesday, based on the current calendar.
I think we have planning hearings on Wednesday afternoons, a few Wednesdays in September.
Yeah, we are.
There's
We have
not,
the-
there's only, it's not at 1:30. There's a planning update at 11 a.m. on September 10th, but on the 3rd, there's no hearing.
10th, we have a hearing
Yeah,
at
we have
1:30.
we have a planning hearing on the 10th and the 22nd of September, and then October 8th that are
So
already
this-
scheduled.
So this might be where we've used so I've shown there's two ways to tell the commissioners what's on their calendar. This might be one of, because I can see it's on the commissioner calendar. Are we holding a spot, or did you ask for the spot? Because it doesn't appear on mine as my time is required for that spot. My side is empty. So when you look on September 10th,
The one in the afternoon.
it shows on the
Yeah, 1:30.
commissioner calendar, there's a 1:30, but it looks like a not request for, so it's not, it doesn't look like, and it's not a placeholder, it's an actual hearing.
Yeah, we do have a file schedule. I think we have two.
Okay. So with barring the 10th at 1:30, we could make Wednesdays work as the workshops then.
I mean, we can start as early as next week. We have the 20th and the 27th. The 27th, we have one hearing item. I was just suggest that we continue the implementation component to that date rather than next week. That frees up a spot on the 20th. Do we have a hearing examiner that day?
Okay.
Anyways, I can work with your staff and come up with
So let's
some-
work with it, but we know we
Yeah.
can hit the October 15th. Okay.
Absolutely.
So at this time, does the board want to take a vote on the motion on the table regarding the land use component?
Just quickly, I would just want to suggest that unless other commissioners already have proposed language to consider, that we not hold the next workshop next week, but go out the following week, because I know I need some time if I'm going to propose anything to be considered. Just with the number of files we're hearing this week, there's no extra time to prepare comments for next week.
Okay, so we can address that after we do this vote. We can just send an email of what you want for next week. Are we ready for a vote? Roll call vote? Yes.
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 Motion passes. Next item, file AM 0004-24, Bonner County Comprehensive Plan Component Update Implementation. So does the board's position has already been stated on what we're going to do? We're going to go right into public comment? Wow. So we can just implement all this while they're gone then, because you're not watching, Jonah.
I'm staying.
You're staying. Right. Okay. Does the board want to hear the update, or do we want to just move into letting do comment since we were going to wait?
So I guess that depends on what the board wants. We have not presented this in a hearing yet, so this would be the first hearing for the board. We've had, three workshops about this so far. So if you like, we can kind of state where we're at. I think you did that earlier, Commissioner Williams, and I can present the file at the next meeting.
My thought on this one is we can allow the community to read it and do all that when we get to the implementation portion of it, because really where we are is making sure the public gets their comments on this, unless someone wants to see that in this setting, because we just released that update yesterday. What does the board think, Commissioner Corn?
I'm fine either way, so, I don't have the updated version, I just have the red line version, that we've gone through.
I printed it, or I emailed it to all the board, last night or this morning, or I think it was last night, the red line version, but I haven't printed a copy for you.
Commissioner Domke, he's either way, so what would your position be on it? Do you want him to go through the presentation?
I don't see the need. I suggest because it's published online for review as a draft, that we just let the public look at it and make comments. And then if we do continue the hearing to next week, we can take it up at that time to look at the public comments and decide if we're ready to vote and potentially adopt it as amended. The reason I say I don't see the need to go through it again in detail right now is we've done 3 public workshops, so I think the process of iteration has been pretty clearly stated through that. So.
All right. So with that, I'm in line with that. So let's move towards public comment since Commissioner Korn could go either way. So he'll come our way. Anybody else? No, Jennifer. She just keeps going like this. No one's raised their hand. Everybody else left. All right, Miss Jennifer.
Okay, Jennifer Arn, Bonner County resident, Sagal also. And what I have for you is a proposed amendment for inclusion in the implementation component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. And this is regarding highway, road, right-of-way vacations that provide public access to publicly owned waters and lands. And I've spent quite a bit of energy working on this at the state level, and I'd like to start here at home. So here's what I have so far, and I haven't got the chance to get home and type it up and send your emails, but I will send this to you and the planning department in an email. Okay, so Bonner County places high value on maintaining its public access to our shared public lands and especially our public waters. As custodians of Idaho's largest lake, among other natural treasures, Bonner County understands the awesome responsibility it has in making decisions to protect public accesses, including the quality of such accesses to these sensitive areas on behalf of local citizens as well as for all Idahoans. Okay, and then this would be the actual amendment. Bonner County will not approve road right-of-way vacations that would limit public access or diminish the quality of such access to state or federally owned waters and lands. This defines, quote, in the public interest as required by IC 40-203, Section H. The county has the option to allow for a road right-of-way vacation that furnishes public access to publicly owned lands and waters at the applicant's expense as part of relocating this right-of-way with a replacement right-of-way. Such replacement right-of-way must provide substantially the same, if not better, public access than the right-of-way being vacated in terms of quality, scope of use, and area. Applicants must disclose if a road right-of-way being considered for vacation furnishes public access to publicly owned lands and waters. Failures to do so could render any decision on that vacation null and void, and commissioners shall accept presentation of evidence that the highway or right-of-way being considered for vacation actually does furnish public access to state or federal public lands or waters. And that step was completely missing from the Camp Bay procedure with the previous board. We never were allowed the opportunity to present that access, that information. I did speak with Jason Topp, and he suggested that we make sure that there are some situations where a road vacation might be necessary or might need to be moved, and that we include the replacement. You know, some of that was, of course, a lot of this is verbiage from, House Bill 101 this past year and Senate Bill 1258 the previous year. And I'm happy to add to this. Basically, we need to say that we need to keep what we have remaining, the small bit that we have remaining.
So feedback from the current proposed language that's posted on the website of the implementation component of the comprehensive plan. The recreation section speaks to public access in a few different ways, and so you might want to look at that section. If in your email you're proposing where you might want to see such language added, you might want to look at the recreation section.
That also, but the road vacations, highway vacations don't, I mean, I know the planning, they go through the planning department for the application, but those are not part of local land use typically. They're part of, state, Idaho 40.
And so when you talked to me this morning, you're wanting us to address it through Title 12. Is that?
Yes, I want there locally to be something
Right.
where when you determine what public interest, you've already kind of stated that public interest is keeping these accesses.
So in terms of implementation, you're wanting something that references a focus on public access in the implementation aspect of the comp plan?
Yeah, I just want something, because obviously you can't amend, a state code, but you can put that into our local code, that this is a value that we have here in Bonner County.
And that's why I'm suggesting the recreation section of the implementation component, because if it becomes a policy in that section, then that would drive a change to Title 12 in the code.
Okay, as long as it gets flagged, because we've seen in the past how things can go down one road and they don't get addressed in another way, so if that.
So put that, remember I said, put that in writing and send it to the board and copy to planning and kind of, the same similar thing that we talked about earlier is getting a board member to take it up so that we bring it forward and kick the ball forward together as a group to keep the visibility and see how if it could impact positively the code and or the comp plan.
And did you have any questions?
Yeah, a couple things to unpack there. So in response, the comprehensive plan is guiding changes to land use based decisions and land use based ordinances. So as you stated, road vacations are not a land use action. They fall under Title 40, where LUPA falls under 67, 65. And Idaho being a Dillon state, which means that we only have the authority granted us by the state statute, we don't get to regulate road vacations in a different manner than the state, because the state under Title 40 has not granted the county the ability to regulate road vacations differently. So you pair of those ideas, we can't craft, from my understanding, and I've spoken with Bill about this, our own ordinance regarding road vacations.
So having spoken to her, and part of what she's trying to do is she wants our comp plan to inject essentially a comment that recognizes the importance of evaluating not outside of what the state statute allows, but putting focus in writing that says Bonner County has a vested interest in ensuring that we don't vacate our roads that deny public access. She's not, and that's why I said send it in writing to the board, we can't change with what she understands that part. She wants something that shows the value that the county has as a whole as it relates to access roads without consideration. Not that she's really asking for a change. She's just wanting a line in our comprehensive plan, was how it was presented to me earlier, was in our comp plan to say that Bonner County values public access to public lands and she's tying it to road vacations because of the experience with Camp Bay. Sure. But in general, she's asking for us to acknowledge the importance of access in the comp plan, even though part of the recognition from the county is going to be exactly what you said, is we can't change the regulations, but she's wanting us to highlight the value similar to the way in which we say we value the rural character of our areas. She's wanting us to recognize value of the access points.
It just can't be that the comp plan gets used as an evaluation tool for road vacations in the future. Like, you can't cross those two paths.
She's just wanting us to recognize the value of it.
It's just, I understand, I know Title 40 forwards and backwards, I can recite in my sleep. But after many years and much money in court, the judge's decision, whether I agree with it or not, basically she said the commissioners can make that determine of what is in the public interest. Yep. And so I am just trying to say, Bonner County, this is what we feel is in the public interest. And that being a statement in there.
And to that point, I think think the right approach would be in the recreation section, because we talk about public access a number of times to public lands, that if there was something in there that was just structured to talk about public access to public lands is in the public's interest, in what way, that would create, I believe, what you're looking for, to say, we, Bonner County, are defining what we see as public interest. But how that use of the term public interest gets applied to other issues down the road then will become universal. It wouldn't be limited or focused just on a road vacation situation. It would be a general statement about the county's perspective on what is in the public's interest for access to public land.
And I think for her, you need to add in public access to lands and waterways. That's part of, that was part of it.
I mean,
but but your issue is heard. It's not, it's part of, send that email to address that concern. Because it has to be formulated, but I don't think there's a where does it fit kind of question.
There were some vague references in the previous recreation section of the previous comp plan in there too, and that didn't seem to come into play at all. And also, I'm wondering if there's a way that possibly on an application form, there could be like a little box on there that says, does this road, provide public access, yes or no, or something, just so that it's flagged, because believe me, it was pretty sneaky finding some of these previously, the files. Finding that these road vacations, and especially when some people tried to say that they didn't provide public access, it's easy. I could see in the future when we had a different board and people who aren't paying attention to these things, where they could slip through. And I'm just wondering if there could be
a way to draw
simple-
attention to public access on the
Yeah, or
forms.
if there's a little box that says, does this provide yes or no? And that it would at least make people look at it and go, does it? Can we prove that?
Okay, got you. To planning, Veronica is listening to our meetings. You guys haven't confirmed, that's why I can't see it on mine. So if you know you need that day on the 10th, you have to confirm to her that you need it. It's set up as a placeholder when they receive documents from you.
For the board,
Okay.
do we need to
September 10th.
determine when we want to continue this file?
Yes, I just wanted to let him know because he wants
Yeah.
that date actually held, and it's.
I'll swing by her office after
Okay.
this and.
All right, thank you. All right, so any further public comment on AM 0004-24?
I would like to say something for you.
She was too slow. Go ahead, you can come up.
I can say it from here.
You have to, so that the people online can hear you.
All I wanted to do,
And state your name.
Larry Smith.
There you go.
Sagal. I just wanted to compliment the board. I've been coming to these meetings since 1995. This is the first board that has listened to the people, and I appreciate it very much. And I could leave with a lot more confidence that we're going to have some the public listen to and thought that we know something.
Thank you.
So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. All right, who can move faster?
I'm only because it's relating, I think. Hi, Katie Cox. I'm with Connexu Land Trust, resident of Bonner County. In having work, and I know the commissioners know that we, along with your recreation staff and a number of municipalities, are working on the water trail along Lake Pend Oreille and the Pend Oreille River, and as part of that project, identifying all those right-of-ways. I think one of the things that we've talked about that I hope does come out of this work that we're doing is that potential layer. And I think one of the things that might address what she is talking about is that layer showing on the GIS map, the layer of public access to public waterways and public lands. So I think that would be a really good addition that might help to just cement that within the GIS mapping. In looking at the recreation, I think you're absolutely correct in terms of there's two parts in here that I think draw on some of her concerns. I don't know if it goes deep enough, but in looking at number one, under recreation and policies, it talks about the program, it talks about the county is encouraged to develop a waterways and public land access program to preserve and develop access to public recreational lands and waterways. Next sentence states, the program should include retaining access parcels that may be acquired from tax sales or private donations. That might be a good spot to include current right-of-ways or current access points so that it amplifies that as well as those tax sales and private donations. And then secondarily, again, on number 4, ensure the public's legal recreational access and amenities are not obstructed or adversely impacted by future development. So I think those are 2 great parts. There's much that I really like about the implementation plan. I wasn't going to say much because there's a lot of great things within the implementation plan, but in listening to the comments on Sagal, I just have a question that I was curious about. Let's see, which section is it? There's a section that highlights, and I think it is land use. Commercial and industrial uses should be located and operated in a manner to ensure the protection of our natural resources, including clean air and water, dark skies, and overall environmental quality and rural character of the county. So I'm just curious in listening to the comments that they make on the the environmental impacts to them about, is the land use policies, like, does that come into play as you're considering those changes in designation? Is like the hierarchy for you to look at those policies as you're considering what's going on? I was just curious because that just seemed so interesting.
I think you're pulling out of the Sagal sub-area plan of what they're looking for in that area, and that's in part what they're coming forward for, is to address how the potential overall change to the comp plan impacts their sub-area plan.
Okay.
And so it does come into a play, but our current focus for today is on the plan itself, and hearing the concerns of how the change could impact their area is an important component, because that's why their comment is about the kind of their definition, but their sub-area plan is addressing the things that you just mentioned, is where I saw that as well.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I just like, as I think about you guys and how you sit up here and try to weigh those impacts, I'm happy to see that in the policy, because I think that might come into play in all of Bonner County and making sure.
I want to turn to Commissioner Domke because he looked like he might have wanted to say something on what you said.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, from a purely technical consideration, the implementation component and the policies, which are the most important part of that component, are technically being driven by all the other components of the comprehensive. Right? So it's supposed to be the culmination of all that other data and thinking, those conclusions that are being enacted in the goals and objectives, and then ultimately the policies. And and this was a mild conversation at previous workshops, but we are technically a little bit cart before the horse by adopting potentially in the next week or two this implementation component before we complete the land use component. But the discussion at the last workshop ultimately was, do we think it's better or worse to get this implementation component adopted sooner because of its much better language and start relying and using it, even though we haven't fully completed the land use component yet. When we do complete the land use component, it's possible that may necessitate some additional amendments to this implementation component. But the implementation component is what should primarily drive changes to Title 12. So it's structurally, we're doing a little bit of back and forth instead of just simple sequential order right now. And I think it's just because of the fact that we're grappling with what's the best impact, positive impact to the community, because of the fact that we're trying to adopt improvements, recognizing that we're not fully complete with our process.
Right.
So I think there's a little bit of back and forth with how things inform each other.
I would commend you for going this route, because I think in a way the implementation plan sort of creates your ethos of what you believe in and the vision and values you have for the region. And that will help you understand if what's lying under this is adhering to that vision and values that you have for the area. So I think it's a good way to go. So thank you for your comment. Thank you for that.
We'll go Jennifer and then Wayne.
Thank you. So my comment is relative to the natural resources section, specifically starting with goal and objective number 5, which reads, the county should protect its water resources by requiring adequate sewer treatment systems based on soil density and intensity of use to reduce impacts to water resources. And so while it may sound really good to have a goal such as that, it's not under the jurisdiction of the county. The goal would be better stated to reflect a need to effectively collaborate with the Panhandle Health District and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality to let them do their job of ensuring public health and safety from sewage waste. And the perils of not doing so are evidenced in the article in Sunday's Spokesman Review about the debacle around the Mountain Homestead subdivision. This article clearly details the problems and liability that occur when appropriate coordination does not happen. It also brings to light the need to protect wetlands from development, whether or not they are regulated under the Clean Water Act. They are oftentimes not appropriate places to develop. After the Supreme Court decision in 2022 called Sackett versus EPA, which concerned a wetland in Bonner County, nonetheless, about 50% of wetlands nationally are now excluded from regulation under the Clean Water Act. And so it's now up to local governments to enact, to create appropriate regulation, and many states are doing so. Bonner County is home to some very high-value, unique, and irreplaceable wetlands. 13 of those are designated as Class 1 wetlands by Idaho Department of Fish and Game. One of those 13 is the Cool and Chase Lake wetlands, which has a Bonner County-approved, I'll call it a subdivision, but it was a minor land division in a series of lot line changes, which is the subject of another issue of litigation that the county has been involved with for some time now. I know it was none of you that got us into that mess, but it is a mess. And so lack of basic wetland protections not only allows irreparable harm to these ecological gems, but it can also cause economic harm to individuals and a great legal risk to the county. So regarding policy number 7, which reads, to the extent of the county's jurisdiction and consistent with the Clean Water Act, protect delineated wetlands. That policy is wholly insufficient. This policy is actually based on what I consider to be a misinterpretation of state law. You may hear arguments from particular planning commissioners that Bonner County cannot enact protections for wetlands that are not regulated under the Clean Water Act because of Idaho statute title 39-3601, which addresses surface water quality. I'll just read from that statute, quote, it is the intent of the legislature that the state of Idaho fully meet the goals and requirements of the Federal Clean Water Act, ... and that the rules promulgated under this chapter not impose requirements beyond those of the Federal Clean Water Act. I'll emphasize that my interpretation of this chapter is that it is about rules enacted by the state, not by the counties, and it is about surface water quality and discharges of pollution to waters of the United States. In no way is the intent to require the county to not protect itself and its constituents by allowing building in wetlands. So I gave you my interpretation of that law. I'm not a lawyer, so I'd highly encourage you to get legal advice on that. But I do just want to ask you to take into great consideration that part of the attraction of this beautiful part of our great state is that we have these amazing water bodies and wetlands that serve as the kidneys of our waterways. They clean the water, they protect us from floods, they do all sorts of amazing things, and we'd be well served if they had some level of protection by the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne Martin.
Wayne Martin, Bonner County resident, for the record. As I'm sure many of you are aware, I know Commissioner Dumpke is, many of the sub areas subcommittees were not able to finish or conclude their subcommittee plans to the end. They were notified that suddenly they had a conclusion date and that they had to finish whatever they could by that date. I am aware that a former planning director did some of the ending or some of the statements that the subcommittees did, and they were not necessarily what the committee wanted to be put across. It was whatever he and or his directors were having him put in there. I also want to state that I am sorry that the Natural Resource Committee has been eliminated. I know that they did not meet a lot when I was in there. Part of that was due to our chairperson not being available. And I'm not sure that that was a positive move, but you know, it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't see, there's no more public comment on this, so we'll go to, does the board want to deliberate before we cast a vote on AM 0004-25? Commissioner Corn?
So what was the motion made on this one?
We were going to continue it until, we don't have a date certain, but we're not going to make a vote on it.
Okay.
Good?
Nope, I don't have any deliberation.
I was just wanting to see if we could choose a date certain.
On implementation?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to, if we want to continue to a date certain, having not read how we,
I'm just thinking that unless we receive an unexpected, overwhelming amount of public comment on the draft document, thinking that we should hopefully be able to choose a hearing date, consider the public comment, discuss it, and then make a decision as to whether or not to make additional changes and adopt.
so let's amend the motion to include the date certain that you identify, and then that's what we vote on.
Is there a motion made?
I'm not sure we.
No, I don't think there's a motion yet on the table. No.
Not on the
It
second one?
was just
All
open for
right.
public comment. Yep.
Okay, so let's just go to making a motion with a date certain then on that one.
I would recommend August 27th. It's a regularly scheduled meeting. We only have one hearing file that day.
Whoa.
And then
That's
that would make
2
public
weeks.
comment cut off the 20th? Is that correct?
Oh, for written comment, is that what you're suggesting? If you would like it before then, but typically with continued, if you leave the record open, anything that's received between now and that hearing date, I'll just provide to the board, hopefully in advance of that meeting.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think through the logistics of, it'd be nice to have at least a few days to digest, consider public comment that comes in writing before the hearing so that we can try to, as efficiently as possible, consider any additional amendments so that we can hopefully actually adopt as amended that component at the hearing, and not have to continue it again.
So the 9th of September doesn't have anything beyond our morning meeting.
Did the 27th of this month not work?
Oh, I thought you were saying no because you wanted more time.
No,
So-
no, I'm sorry. I was saying I wanted to have a little bit of time between receiving written public comment and us having the hearing so that, because if we're trying to digest all of the public comment at the hearing, I don't know that we'll actually finish the hearing.
So far with the noticed hearing, today's date, we've only received 4 public comments. So I'm not sure you're going to get an onslaught, but
Okay.
I've been wrong in the past, so you never know.
How many files do we already have on the 27th?
We have 1 zone change file that day, applicant initiated.
Okay. So the other ones that I'm seeing on that date have been
Shows like 3 or 4 of them.
rescheduled or?
Do we have anything else scheduled for that day initially, Alex?
You have AM 325, ZC 825, and ZC 325.
I think the only thing going is ZC 325. I think the other ones were.
Yeah, we had some that needed to be
I think the other ones are pushed back.
Okay.
So it's up to you, because so when he brought forward the 27th, you asked him about when does public comment close, which he said all the way up until the date of the hearing. You made a comment about wanting time to digest. So are you okay with the 27th if he were to do that before that meeting?
Yeah, let's plan on the 27th.
So what is the time that you're anticipating, knowing that the file, that you're reducing your 1:30 to 5 to not needing that amount of time since you're down from 3 to 1 file?
Are you asking me, Commissioner?
Yes.
I mean,
You're changing, so the calendar that we have has 3 files on it. You're changing it, so you're saying we only need to do 1 file.
there's only 1 file.
So given that size of the file, what time would you think to make a decision on the implementation?
Well, I would say you continue to 1:30, which is the start of that meeting, and you can either do it before or after that scheduled hearing. So we can add it as the first item so it gets addressed quickly.
Sounds good.
I don't think this file will take that much. We haven't had a whole lot of
You've
public
said that
interest.
like 3 times, so I feel like that's not true. And
Where's the
that's my
building? This is-
hesitancy, because you've said it so, we thought this was just going to get reset, and look how long we've sat here.
Fair enough.
All right, we're knocking it out on the 27th, so we'll consider to the 27th, yeah. We'll continue to a date certain for the implementation component at 1:30.
So would you like a motion?
Is that, where are we
What's the
agreeable?
motion?
No, I didn't make a motion. I'm trying to, we're having a conversation
I
when to
agree
start.
with- I agree with that.
Do you want to start it at 1:30 or want to start it at 1 o'clock?
If we could reschedule that meeting, if it hasn't been noticed yet.
It's been noticed.
It's been
in 2
noticed, so
weeks, so
if that hearing starts
can-
at, the reason I don't like that is the people that know they're coming expect to start at their
That's
time.
fine. So we put it on the same agenda. The agenda has the start time. It doesn't have time specific to files. So we can just add it as a second item. So continue it to 1:30 because that's the start of the meeting. And then it'll likely be taken up as soon as you guys get done with the zone change. And I quit presuming how long those would take.
So
In
all
all
cus-
fairness, we did away with 2 files, so people that might be coming for that one that's still going on, they're still expecting to be discussed somewhere between 1:30 and 5, right?
They're not guaranteed a time slot within
Right.
that hearing. It's just.
Yep.
Okay, so at this time, we'll entertain a motion regarding AM 0004-25.
I move to continue file AM 0004-25 to August 27th at 1:30 PM.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any comment from the public on the motion on the table? Seeing none. Hi, Brandon, I haven't seen your name up there in a while. Deliberation by the board?
None
Hearing-
further.
None further. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is 3:22 and this meeting is adjourned.